The other day, I made a video about how I went outside my house during the daytime for the first time in like 6 months. And in that video, I talked about a lot of anxiety that I had in the supermarket specifically, and some of the things I was dealing with that. And I ended up having another experience like the day before yesterday that totally changed my perception on all of this and got me thinking a bit more. So I went to a major city in another state with my mom in order to, you know, have an operation done on her. I won't get into that. But I had to take some sort of government provided shuttle system in order to get there. And then when we were actually there, it was a very, very large hospital with so many people in it. And not a single time did I feel nervous. Even though everybody was so unfamiliar, I was just doing my own thing. It wasn't like when I was a kid, when I was in my early teens and I would have to go to that same hospital with her for her procedures and her checkups and stuff. I remember, feeling nervous having anything that I liked on me or, doing anything that I cared about because I didn't want other people to judge me for the stuff I liked or to see that I was doing it, things like this. Um, and I didn't feel anything like that. I just kept watching Telemundo and this TV series, this sitcom called Extra, which is in Spanish. I think it was sort of designed for people who are learning Spanish because one of the main characters is this American guy that goes to Spain to stay with these folks, and they all have to speak to him in a rather simple way in order to get their ideas across. And it's very funny in spite of the relatively simple language that's used in it, but that's neither here nor there. I sat there and I watched a bunch of SpongeBob in Spanish as well. It was like 10 or 12 hours that we had to be there because the shuttle service only provided for time slots really early in the morning, and then they only showed back up really late in the day despite her appointment being in midday. So I was able to have this like full immersion experience just sitting in this lobby the whole time, and I didn't give a fuck. Like, and then I turn over and I was talking to her about stuff in the show. I was talking to her about different stuff that might be embarrassing for other people, but like I just didn't care. And I was somewhat chatting up the people in the cafeteria of that building, and the cafeteria was very full. I didn't care. I went to I wasn't like JD Vance in a donut shop where he's like just give me whatever looks good to you. No, I was like, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this, and I want all of this on this, and please do it like this. Very like assertive in the cafeteria, which to a lot of people is not that big of a thing. I guess to the vice president it might be, but it's interesting, how different it was to when I was in the supermarket the other day. So I started to sort of theorize about this and think about it. And I think maybe the reason why I felt so nervous in that store, beyond just the fact that I hadn't been there in a while or been outside like that in a while, was because this is a small town. This is a small town where I see the same people all the time, and the same people see me all the time. And I think I just associate that with like a certain reputation that I'm supposed to uphold, and that inherently kind of creates a level of pressure on me that I simply don't feel in large cities or in unfamiliar places that I've never been, which also sort of explains one of the things that I talked about in that video, where I used to just be able to chat up everybody in the bus station and make all these friends on the buses and airplanes I was taking to go to various places around the country. And the friends that I would make in different cities around the US, it explains so much about why I was able to have those experiences, especially during the period of my life when I was traveling a lot. And you know I think maybe I just need to be one of these people that's moving around a lot, or maybe they just live in a really big city or in a really remote rural area where literally nobody lives, so it's just not an issue that you have to think about much. Um, Taking those runs to the grocery store once a month or whatever, and in that time it's not really like enough for people to get to know you or to see you. Because don't get me wrong here, I have major issues with cities, with big cities. Unless they're like European cities where they're really walkable and have this kind of community vibe to them, I just don't like them. Not just because of a lack of walkability, but also because of noise and overstimulation from there being so much going on. In a lot of European cities, at least the ones I've been to and lived in some time ago, it was a different thing entirely because it was built in a way to reduce noise and increase the quality of life overall, which is a really nice thing, I gotta say. But, um, I wouldn't want to live really in a city in the US. Even though there are some that are better than others, there are some with better quality of life than others, it's still a North American city, which means it's going to come with a whole host of problems. And those problems are not anything I'm a fan of if you've seen my videos about those topics. So even though it would be better for my social anxiety to live in a place like that, I can't, for all these other reasons. So I'm sort of stuck in this like mid-size, well, not even mid-size. It's like for most people, this would be like a small town, but you know, it's not able to compute with me. It's not able to fit into what I want because I wind up having these issues where I'm seeing the same people all the time, and it's putting this weird level of pressure on me to feel like I need to do something or to be a certain way. And then, of course, because you're nervous, your performance becomes a lot worse because you feel like you have to perform, which is not a great pressure to put on somebody. And so, yeah, you end up just doing a lot worse in general. When you're totally relaxed and you feel confident in yourself, you're actually going to be exponentially better than you think you might be, simply because you're just, being yourself, you're doing what's natural. And that is, in fact, the case for the most part when I do that in these other cities that are unfamiliar to me, with people that are unfamiliar to me. It's like all of a sudden I possess this level of confidence, this go-getter spirit where I feel like I can just do whatever and there's not really going to be any consequences. And I end up having much higher quality interactions. And even when I'm not interacting with people, I feel much more comfortable just being myself and doing whatever because their judgment doesn't particularly matter to me. So all of this is to say, I have worked out a more robust theory as to why I seem to have such a high level of social anxiety in this town, which I think will help me begin to decouple myself from it, because I want to be able to live in any size of town and to not have these issues. I don't want to have social anxiety of any kind in any situation. And that's what I'm really working on trying to change. And I'm also documenting that with these videos. So with that, I think that's everything. Let me see if there's anything I forgot. Whenever I start talking really fast like this in a video, I feel like I'm much more prone to forgetting all the different things that I want to discuss. I think that's basically it. I'm gonna pause just for a moment so I can think. As a side note, I think this also explains some of the issues that I've had with being nervous at jobs, because when you're at a job, you see literally the same people all day, and that's not the best situation. Oh yeah, I remembered another thing that I forgot to talk about, which is my whole schizo tics thing, the thing that I constantly do when I'm at home, where I scream random phrases repetitively and say all these like schizo tics and words and stuff. I wasn't doing that at all in public. I had a couple moments when I started thinking them in my own head, and like one or two where I whispered something that wasn't actually offensive, thankfully, really quietly under my breath. But other than that, I literally had zero moments where I was doing those schizo tics, which is great because that's something I worry about a lot when I go out in public, because I don't know how people are going to take it or interpret it. But thankfully, it was not an issue. I didn't have to deal with that. And it just made me think, like, maybe this whole going outside thing is pretty useful for me to reduce some of the anxiety or like schizo stuff that occurs as a result of possibly me being inside all the time. I'm not entirely sure, but maybe an essential component of my recovery from doing these phrases constantly is actually spending a lot of time outdoors, and maybe especially in unfamiliar places. I don't know, we'll have to see. But I'm definitely going to be working on that as a component of this as well. Another thing too is I didn't have like you know, all these intense memories while I was out either. Now, I have had moments like that when I've been out in public and it's been really uncomfortable. So this isn't to make a statement about how I work in general, more so to just describe what this day was like. I didn't have all these like flashbacks to times someone did something wrong to me, or times I embarrassed myself or felt bad or uncomfortable, or times something really bad happened. I wasn't having that all the time while I was out. And I think it helped that I was studying Spanish so much, because I don't really get those flashbacks when I'm studying, which is part of why I'm so addicted to studying, because it's a productive outlet for me that feels satisfying, but also it distracts me from this component of my mental illness. It seems to make it harder for these flashbacks to come out because I'm so focused on something. And that was part of why, I got really into video games too from such an early age, because I could just block out all of that stuff that would shoot around, that would spin around in my brain. But I wasn't having that issue while I was out. And there were a couple times when I was like somewhat awkward or somewhat embarrassing. I didn't harp on it. I wasn't thinking about it over and over and over. I just kept doing my own thing. I was like, yeah, I'm just a person, I exist. It's a little bit harder to take everything you're doing so seriously, when you're in a place with literally millions of people. So that's that. And I'm going to continue documenting these experiences. I was trying to say experiments, but that works as well. And I'll let you know how it goes. We are in the process of overcoming social anxiety. That is what I hope to do. It is difficult to do when also having autism and PTSD, but that is not a reason to give up. You have to keep trying. And I particularly need to keep trying, because if I'm going to pursue college, that's an environment where you're around people, especially the same people, all the time. So I need to get a hold on this, because that is one of my biggest goals. And I also want to go to various schools for language, even though I could learn pretty much all the same stuff just at home. That's what I'm currently doing. I still want to have that environment where I can be speaking a lot and constantly exposed to it in a more, I don't want to say natural, because I don't really believe in, natural versus unnatural or whatever, but, something perhaps more organic than what I can simulate at home. So all of these things are big goals for me, and in order to pursue them, and to the fullest extent, I have to work on what's going on up here. But I'm already making very quick progress, as this trip from the other day indicates.